Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. Old Malik Scott got involved with Deontay Wilder, and he had an effect on him. And it wasn't good, was it? I even found out today that it was just like I assumed. It was Malik Scott that introduced Wilder to that damn ayahuasca. So Malik Scott and Wilder had a good relationship. According to Malik Scott, Wilder was like, hey, you know this boxing stuff, why don't you train me? And Malik Scott said, no problem. And he put that Malik Scott seasoning on Deontay Wilder and created a shit sandwich. Now, I'm going to tell you, Malik Scott knows boxing, but I just don't think he was able to be confident with trying to train and develop Deontay Wilder, since Wilder had already put the bing-bings on him. You listen to Malik Scott talk about Wilder. He's a very violent man. He's a very violent man. And how he exaggerates Deontay Wilder's punching power, and how when Deontay Wilder throws the right hand when he be holding the mitts, how Malik Scott was acting like he about to fly out the ring. The bottom line is, I think Malik Scott, in regards to Deontay Wilder, I think he was a bad trainer. I think he sabotaged Deontay Wilder's career. Now, as a result of him having Deontay Wilder, having Malik Scott in his corner for, several fights, I just think that there was a lot of physical damage done to Deontay Wilder. I think there was a lot of mental damage done to Deontay Wilder. And I definitely feel that there was a lot of spiritual damage done to him. And I just think when you look at it strategically, it was just all bad. So Chef Malik Scott put together a recipe for disaster for Deontay Wilder. And when you have a bad trainer, and I'm going to call him a bad trainer because we're just talking about him as a trainer for Deontay Wilder. He was a bad trainer. I'm not saying he doesn't know boxing, because I do think Malik Scott can develop fighters. I just think for Deontay Wilder, it was just all bad. But when you talk about the mental and emotional impact, just look at Wilder. Listen to Deontay Wilder. Listen, these aren't my words. Listen to what he's saying. Betrayal and crying. It's like, man, he wasn't talking like this before Malik Scott, people. So, as a result of him working with Malik Scott and everything Wilder's gone through inside and outside the ring, since hooking up with Malik Scott, it's just eroded his confidence. And Wilder came out and said, look, I'm a man that lost my confidence. He couldn't understand how he lost his confidence, but he lost his confidence. And for a guy like Deontay Wilder, man, if you don't have the confidence in yourself and you get in that ring, it ain't gonna work out. He gotta have the confidence in himself. Otherwise, he can't pull the trigger and perform the way we've grown accustomed to seeing him. You see, poor feedback or inconsistent messaging can make a fighter second-guess themselves in the ring. You look at Malik Scott with the feedback and messaging that he was giving Deontay Wilder, telling him he's doing great in fights when he wasn't. Kind of suggesting that he should do a little bit more, instead of grabbing him by the neck and saying, look, you're effing up, man. You're losing. So as a result of Malik Scott being afraid to tell Wilder, you're finding a way to lose, he contributed to the erosion of Wilder's confidence. That's why I see Wilder right now trying to rebuild. Motivation. Let me tell you something. When you got a trainer, I got to wonder just how much passion did Malik Scott have, and how much belief did he have in Wilder as a fighter? He talked the talk, but I heard him say one time something along the lines of Wilder being stubborn, and sometimes he doesn't want to listen. And maybe Wilder picked up on that he can kind of get away with some things with Malik Scott. Maybe the respect for Malik Scott wasn't really there the way we thought it was. But the bottom line is when you look at that union between Malik Scott and Deontay Wilder, you can see that. I think Malik Scott's inability to really guide Deontay killed Deontay's motivation, because it sounded like he lacked a lot of motivation before Scott. And it was Scott hooking up with Wilder, who's his friend, but his friend who's stubborn and doesn't want to listen. Maybe that killed some of Malik Scott's motivation. And as a result, you just have two guys who are just existing and freaking around in the gym. You watch Wilder and Malik Scott, and a lot of those videos where Malik Scott's holding the mitts, they're dancing and shit. Wilder's doing flying uppercuts. He's jumping. He's doing 360s. He's doing craziness in the ring. And I'm going to tell you, for me, just like all of us, we were watching that saying, this is madness. So if you're allowed to do that shit, that's going to, kill your motivation. Because you no longer have to be disciplined and be motivated to go out there and be great. You're just in there, going through the motions, fumbling around, and the whole goddamn Wilder Bomb Squad show turned into a circus. Then you got the tension that could be created. It sounds to me like Malik Scott and Wilder, there was some tension at times because Malik Scott wanted Wilder to do certain things and Wilder didn't want to do it. And as a result, when there's tension, I can only imagine how the communication, which could have been effective at times, turned very ineffective and resulted in a miscommunication. And that's what happens sometimes when you have mismatched personalities. Malik Scott is a fast-talking city slicker. Deontay Wilder is a slow-moving, easy-going country boy who has a big heart, who grew up very spiritual family, spiritual background. And yeah, he rants and raves and he makes some noise, but you can tell Deontay Wilder has a good heart. And I just think he just happened to get himself connected and formed this symbiotic relationship with a fast-talking city slicker whose ass he had already whipped. And the city slicker, I just don't think was ever comfortable in his position, because he was qualified to talk about boxing. He was qualified to offer his input on boxing, but Malik Scott may not have been qualified to train fighters at the level Wilder was at when he got him. But I'm going to tell you, as a result of him not being very qualified to take on a guy like Wilder at the level Wilder was at when he got him, he just saw that there was a lot of technical and tactical damage. Because Malik Scott could only teach Wilder what he knew, what he experienced. Yeah, he'd been in some camps with other big-name fighters sparring. Yeah, had been boxing since he was a kid. But the thing is this. He wasn't a champion-level fighter. He had a winning record. He was a good fighter, but he wasn't great. He wasn't elite. He wasn't special. Wilder was special. He had something that Malik Scott couldn't cultivate. Mark Breland was special. He knew how to cultivate that God-gifted talent that Deontay Wilder had, because Mark Breland had it too. But just look at it. As soon as Mark Breland was Wilder put foot to ass, look at what happened to Deontay Wilder's career. Because he didn't have a qualified trainer there who could help cultivate that God-gifted power. Tall, lanky, fast-ass hands, and freakish power, and mean as hell. Same thing with Mark Breland. Tall, lanky, God-gifted power, and can be mean as hell in that ring. So instead, you bring over Chef Malik Scott, who came up there and conjured up a recipe for disaster and delivered us a shit sandwich. Bad habits, man. We were hearing about the bad habits of Deontay Wilder before Malik Scott came in the picture, but then you start hearing all kind of stuff. Remember, I'm not in the camp, I don't know. But you're hearing that there was some maybe when Malik Scott was in the camp before he became the head trainer, that he could have been kind of baiting Deontay Wilder in to feeling like there's some things that the trainers want him to do that Malik Scott felt like, yeah, you're right, you don't need to do that, and I know, and I've been boxing, I've been study boxing, I study film, and there's some things that we can do with you because of just the talent you have and the power you have that you don't necessarily need to do, and I think we can come up with a very unique and original approach as far as the technique, your technique, and the tactics and strategy we're going to use to make sure you can continue inflicting damage. But you don't necessarily need to do it their way. I am pretty sure that when Malik Scott got with Deontay Wilder, whatever few bad habits Wilder had, he developed copious amount of bad habits. I believe he developed an abundance of bad habits because Mark Breland and Jay Diaz was tightening him up. Although Wilder didn't sound like he didn't really listen that much, they were tightening him up. And I just think because they didn't agree with him, even though they said Wilder didn't want to hear what nobody had to say. But with Malik Scott, it just sounds to me like he just never disagreed with Wilder. It was just like, yeah, champ, you're right. And I'm just telling you, man, a trainer who doesn't correct form, they will let flaws fester. And I think that's what you saw happen with Malik Scott and Deontay Wilder. The flaws festered, and he ended up in the situation he was in. Just look at how Wilder would drop his hands. Look at look at his poor footwork. Like, Wilder has always had skill. Now, I'm not saying he was Alexander Usyk, but there was a noticeable difference that we can all admit from Wilder with his footwork, with his balance, with how he threw the right hand, keeping his hands down, everything. There were a bunch of habits that showed up once Malik Scott got in the camp that wasn't there. And that is the god-awful truth. So Malik Scott was a bad trainer for Wilder that, as a result, fostered bad habits. Then he went to a one-dimensional strategy. We all know Wilder was known for the big right hand, but he had a left hook. He had a jab. There were a lot of things Wilder can do. There were a myriad of things Wilder could do working underneath that Mark Breland and Diaz. But really, Mark Breland was the brain. Hooks up with Malik Scott. Horrible game planning. Everything is just the right hand. Wilder's left hook, he had an effective left hook. But his right hand, we all know that was his bread and butter. But he started slapping with it. He started throwing almost like it wasn't even rabbit punches, like rabbit slaps on the side or back of the head of his opponents. Borderline hammer fisting. Just looking crazy. And everybody came and converged on Wilder and basically, man, just dogpiled him and was kicking him while he was down. See, we told you he never had skill. He got Luis Ortiz. It was just luck. He knocked him out. With Tyson Fury, he got exposed. Now he's fighting elite fighters. He's getting exposed. Nah, man. That's not what happened. First of all, Tyson Fury, I'm not getting into that because I believe his ass cheated. And I know for a fact he had the secret society looking after him, but I ain't getting into that in this video. But what happened is Wilder, first of all, the Helenius fight. Wilder was about to get knocked out. He got hit and hurt as soon as Helenius threw the first, it was a right hand or a counter right hand or a check left hook. Some shit he threw, real quick. As soon as Wilder tried to go to a jab to the body, he got countered. And Wilder started doing that Malik Scott circle in the ring shit. And Helenius was stepping to him. Wilder was going back because he was scared to let his hands go. And he felt his back hit the rope, and he just threw a right hand. It was just something instinctive. And it just happened to land, and Helenius was out for the count. But that fight, I saw then, I was like, this guy ain't the same. And everybody like, oh, he's back, and Malik Scott, like, that's what we trained on, and being able to fight off the back foot. Okay. Well, why didn't it work for Parker? Because I'm telling you, Helenius was about to be on Wilder's ass. Why didn't it work for Parker? Sure as hell ain't work for Shane. Because Malik Scott technically and tactically ruined Deontay Wilder. Everything is just the right hand, right hand. I mean, you got to have something else. I remember watching Deontay Wilder fight Bermane Stiverne in that second fight, and everybody was just like, yo, that man has a Larry Holmes-like jab, piston-like jab. And Paulie Malignaggi, after he knocked him out, statement. That was a statement. Nobody's saying that now, are they? One-dimensional strategy what Malik Scott conjured up for Deontay Wilder. Had him relying too heavily on the power in that right hand. But the thing is, Wilder was effective with that power in the right hand because he brought aggression along with it. You're going to take away the man's aggression, but then try to focus a one-dimensional strategy for him to throw the right hand? How can you expect a guy like Wilder, who's known for being mean and have aggression in the ring, how can you expect to take that away from him, but expect him to throw that right hand with the kind of power he was able to throw, and he was throwing it because he was trying to kill people in the ring? It just doesn't work. That's why his ass was getting exposed, and my fans were saying, now he's getting exposed. Man, he got exposed because, yeah, he was fighting some talented guys, but because Malik Scott stripped him away of all the things that he did pretty damn good and tried to focus on the one thing he did great. But Malik Scott didn't seem to realize it was those good things Wilder did that helped him set up the one thing he did great, which was the right hand. Anyway, if the advice Malik Scott was giving Wilder in training camp was shit, then the advice he was giving him during the fights, you had to assume that it was garbage too. Pretty simple. You tell me Wilder just couldn't make any adjustments? There's no adjustments. Let me tell you something, man. These bad trainers, there's a lot of them out there. But remember, I think Malik Scott knows boxing. But I just think when you have a trainer that really doesn't suit you, I think as a result, they may just give you some vague or harmful instructions. And when I saw Wilder fighting Zhang, and Malik Scott was talking about throwing the hook and going to the body and doing this and that, I'm like, yo, my man, have you not realized Zhang is just as tall as Wilder, about the same amount of reach, but more power? Tall guys with long arms have given Deontay Wilder issues. As a result, the poor trainer affected his technique, tactical approach to things, resulted in some physical consequences, and also mentally and emotionally ruined the guy. So that's why you saw him getting hurt in the ring. You know what I'm saying? Those are those physical consequences of having a bad trainer. And Malik Scott needs to own it. You got to own it, man. For those of you who are saying, damn, Hood Champion being too hard on him, no, you got to understand my background. I don't believe in alibi. And when you're the trainer, you're in a position of leadership, man. You're not at a tactical level or operational level. You're at a strategic level. You are the guy. If that mission fails, that's on your ass. You can't blame the people in the ring or the supporting cast or the fans at all, man. That's on you. But if it's a mission success, you give all the credit to that fighter. But when it fails, you own it. Because you're the captain of that ship. I just think when you just think about the physical consequences that Deontay Wilder endured, I just think it's a result of the mismanaged conditioning. You know, it ain't no secret that they ain't really pushed for Wilder to do the things that he should have been doing. There's like a lot of Wilder being allowed to do the things he wants because the Wilder had bought into, which was true for quite some time. A fighter that I scrap with, they need to be perfect for 36 minutes. I just need to be perfect for 1 second. And as a result, when you're having success at that, it can kill your motivation and commitment to conditioning and trying to improve your conditioning. And when you got a trainer who's really not going to say anything to you, what do you expect to happen? I just I'd rather hear the story about Deontay Wilder getting burnt out. I'd rather hear the fact that he may have some stamina issues or issues with keeping his hands up because he just overtrained. But it doesn't sound like in any camp under Malik Scott, Wilder overtrained. It doesn't sound like he overtrained on anything. It always sounds like he was maybe kind of doing his own thing and it was wrong strategy. And as a result, all of the in-betweens, and y'all can fill in the blanks, that Wilder should have been doing, it just wasn't getting done. So, that's why I'm not surprised that, we saw Parker clip him the way he did. And we saw Zhang clip him the way he did. Because there was an increased risk of injury because of poor preparation. Anyway, y'all can think what y'all want about that. Never heard nothing really about sparring except, he's looking magnificent. He's destroying fighter at sparring, and he's doing this and he's doing that. He's doing all the things I want him to do. But if Malik Scott wanted Wilder to do all the wrong things, but Malik Scott didn't think so, well, then when Wilder got in the ring, although he did all the things Malik Scott wanted him to do, but if they were the wrong things, that means Wilder was going to get in that ring and end up in the position he ended up in against Joseph Parker. Wilder was out on his feet when Parker hit him with that overhand right hand. And Zhang, that was just scary. That was frightening. I thought Wilder was dead. When Zhang hit him, man, I felt bad for Wilder. I ain't going to lie. I said that to see that man go from KOing people, tranquilizing people, to him getting beat on like that, knowing what he came in the sport for his daughter, I felt bad for him. I did. But the long-term effects of Wilder being with Malik Scott boxing, Chef Malik Scott, recipe for disaster, the long-term effects of that is something that we really need to be paying attention to and discussing. It hurt his development as a fighter. How many years was he with Malik Scott? 5 years, some shit like that. 5 years of not developing, no growth, no nothing. That hurt Deontay Wilder. He can't get that back. This man's about to be 40. Maybe 40 already, I don't know. Can't get it back. And the thing is, I think those years he was with Malik Scott, there was a good opportunity for Wilder to really peak and maybe go a little further before he plateaued. I don't think Wilder ever peaked or plateaued. I think he was maybe 2 or 3 years away from getting there, because you could see he was getting better in every fight until he ran into Fury with the bullshit. But I don't think Malik Scott was able to piece Wilder back together and make him better after the Fury fights. I think he basically in the third Fury fight, I think that was all. It was Malik Scott's idea for him to put on all that weight and muscle, which was, it looked like it helped him out a little bit, but it was also slowed him down, so it was kind of stupid. But also I think Wilder fought that fight with a lot of the insight that he had received from the years of training with Mark Breland. So I don't give Malik Scott any credit for that fight. I start with Robert Helenius. As far as any credit I was to give to Malik Scott, I would start with that fight. And with that fight, I saw that Wilder was lucky to land that right hand. So you could see when Malik Scott had really, really taken over and had some time to really get his teeth into Deontay Wilder, Wilder was already going the wrong direction. Now, that's just my opinion. So to me, he wasted his prime years on Malik Scott, man. All that time spent with the wrong coach, I think it delayed his progress, and it cost him some huge opportunities. It cost him some huge money. And it damaged his reputation. Look at him now on BLK Prime on that platform. Did y'all see that press conference today? Y'all see that weigh-in and all that whack shit? Look at where he's now. Thanks to Malik Scott. Reputation damage. Looking unprepared, looking undisciplined inside the ring. Losing fan support. He lost promotional backing. This is all thanks to Malik Scott. I ain't making that up. Y'all can say what you want, man. Hood champion, you saying Malik Scott ruined Deontay Wilder's career? Yeah, I'm saying that. I think there's some culpability for sure on Wilder's end. However, put this bottle down. I think Malik Scott ruined his career. I do. You know what I'm saying? Well, Malik Scott just wasn't the right fit for Deontay Wilder. And as a result, he hurt him, man. Wilder's style wasn't a style where you need someone to come in and turn a lion into a pussycat. He turned a lion into a pussycat. Wilder used to roar, "Bomb squad, roar." Then he had him meowing, "Meow, meow, meow, meow." Who turns a lion into a pussycat in an effing heavyweight division? A former WBC champion. Why would you do that? Because you were a pussycat. When you were a fighter, you were a coochie core. You were a tickler. You were a hee ha ha ha. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But Wilder wasn't that. And you tried to turn him into you. You should have knew you should have already known, based on your experience with that man in the ring, I don't have the mentality to coach someone like this. This man is a savage. He needs someone who loves the knockouts, who loves the aggression, who loves the ferociousness. An Abel Sanchez type guy, a Freddie Roach type guy, a Robert Garcia type guy, maybe an Abel Sanchez type guy, Derek James type guy. Anyone who loves knockouts and aggression. Not Malik Scott. But to Malik Scott's credit, he did suggest Wilder, hey, there are other people out here, but Wilder sounded like he wanted him. Wanted Malik Scott to be his trainer. Anyway, he got what he wanted. Under Scott, he went 1-3. And that Robert Helenius one, I don't count that because I think he got lucky to land that right hand. And maybe the goal was to turn Wilder into a more technical back foot boxer, and maybe that was the goal. You got to have goals. You got to have a plan, right? But I just think it clashed with Wilder's natural identity to be, wild. You know what I'm saying? To be aggressive, to be a knockout artist. Can't have nobody in the back foot because you feel he just hit so hard that if he could somehow lure somebody in and set a trap and counterpunch, that he can just get him out of there with the right hand. Didn't work that way against Joseph Parker's Li Zhang, did it? Wilder looked hesitant, looked reluctant to throw, didn't have confidence, looked, super nice. And he just never got off anything. Just didn't look good, man. Killer instinct that wants to find him was out the window. Like he left that shit in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. But, the only person you can blame Malik Scott, because when he's talking about, okay, well, what went wrong? Wilder lost his identity. Malik Scott, slowly but surely, stripped away Wilder's identity. We all know Wilder's a fool. We all know Wilder's crazy when he gets in the ring. He's a different man. He was. I like Wilder being a fool in the ring, being crazy, being wild, trying to kill somebody in the ring. I like watching that Wilder fight. But he became way too friendly, man. I just never understood it, man. You know what I'm saying? Even his own father mentioned something about Malik Scott and getting Malik Scott up out of there, and he's more of your friend than a coach, and that can't work when you got a friend. Instead of a coach, you need someone to be able to tell your ass, shut up and listen, sit down. You know what I'm saying? Malik Scott would have never done that. So I think it affected the discipline inside the training camp. Mike Tyson defined discipline the best. Doing something you don't want to do like you love it. And you can see that Wilder, from my understanding, there were a lot of things he didn't want to do, and he did not do it. So there was whatever little bit of discipline that was there in the camp, it was definitely a lot more before Chef Malik Scott came out there with the recipe of disaster. And I just don't think the respect was truly there. When I watched them interact and Malik Scott listened to Wilder, sometimes Water, he's not the most articulate. Country boy, don't know how he did academically in school, went off to college. Sometimes they push athletes through school and shit like that. But you can listen to Water. He has good intentions, but he's not the most articulate, but you can kind of make sense of what he's trying to convey, right? But I watched Malik Scott in some interviews, and he almost looks like he's just frustrated listening to Water ramble on. Because Malik Scott is definitely, again, a fast talker, city slicker. Water's just an old easygoing, slow talking country boy. But I don't think the respect that maybe Water had for him, I do believe Malik Scott like Water, appreciates Water, cares about Water, but I don't think it was a mutual respect. Plus, how much can you respect a guy that knocked the fuck out of you? That's like you being married to a lady, you being married to a chick, and she has 2 children from a previous marriage, right? And her ex, or her baby daddy, he's coming a hard time. She's like, can he come and just live with us until he gets back on his feet, baby? He's just having tough times. How can you be comfortable with that shit? You want to bring your ex in the crib with us? Because he falling on tough times. Yeah, baby. That's my kid's father, and that's the kid's daddy. I just want to bring him in here with us until he gets on his feet. Shit sound crazy, right? How crazy does it sound to have a guy who you knocked the fuck out of come in your camp and train you and think he has the best intentions for you and gonna really do his best to bring you to the next level when you're at a spot where he was trying to get to, but because of you, he wasn't able to get there? I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just having a conversation. I'll put it to you this way. I'll give you a story, and then I'm going to continue on. I remember that it was the end of the year. It was award time. And I had cleaned up on inspections, developing people, getting my people recognized, everything. I was the number 1 guy as far as senior NCOs. And at the end of the year, there was a certain award I wanted, that Senior NCO of the Year award. And they gave it to someone else. And the individual who took it from me and gave it to someone else was my own supervisor. And he knew everything I did, and that was because of me that our organization was rated so highly on the inspection. Everybody was praising me, and hey, if it wasn't for you, because of my performance, people got promoted. Okay, pretty big deal. But end of the year, they didn't give me that award. And I was pissed, boy. Anyway, the individual explained something to me, and I understand now why he did what he did, but at the time I didn't. But there was something that came up where I could have helped that guy out, right? He doesn't even know this came my way. It was a job opportunity because he was getting ready to transition. And I had received a call, and I was asked my opinion about this guy. And I thought about everything that MF had did, even though I didn't understand at the time. Now I understand. I kind of feel bad, right? But you think I went out my way to help that dude out? I just said, look, I really don't have no comment. They said, well, they said you would be a good point of reference to actually speak on this person, about this person. I said, yeah, I worked with it, so and so for a couple of years, but I'm gonna tell you, I just don't have anything to say, and that hurt him. So what I'm getting at is when you can't tell me that somewhere in the back of Malik Scott's mind he wasn't like, shit, I ain't gonna necessarily, I'm gonna make sure I get my money, but I ain't gonna make sure I break my neck for you, especially if you got somebody who's being stubborn towards you and making you feel like you're not really adding to the team. Anyway, it is what it is, man. May have just been the wrong coach at the wrong time. I don't know. But I just think Water was in a very critical phase of his career after the Fury loss. And I just think he needed a tactical reinvention. And I just think what what Malik Scott did to try to reinvent Wilder was just ass backwards. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, we'll see if Wilder can return to his roots, because I'm going to tell you, he's going to have to figure out something, man, because some people say, Malik Scott didn't really ruin Deontay Wilder's career. I think he did, but they would say, you know what? That time he spent with Wilder, that tenure that he was with Wilder, maybe it just coincided with Wilder's decline. Maybe Wilder was on the downslope and Malik Scott happened to jump on to that vessel, the bomb squad vessel, and the ship was going down and Malik Scott just jumped on at the wrong time. And Wilder's underperforming and getting old and the damage he took from the Fury fights, all that affected Malik Scott. I mean, no argument's wrong. It's just a conversation. But what I'll say is, Wilder needs to figure it out going forward, and hopefully he doesn't bring Malik Scott back, because there was a lot of money. You know what? Wilder lost a lot of money. Shelly Finkel screwed him. Yeah, Eddie Hearn was being a little shady and not wanting to disclose how much money AJ was going to make. But that was $100 million for 3 fights, Brazil, and two for AJ. And I think Wilder would have won all 3 fights, even though I know AJ had power, and back then he had confidence. They were both undefeated. But I said Wilder can get to him. But I said, that's a 50-50 fight. Some people were picking AJ, some were picking Wilder. I was like, no, actually it's 50-50 when they were in their prime. But the bottom line is he missed out on those paydays. And then you figure the other mega fights he may have missed out with, man, and of course the loss of Tyson Fury didn't really help him. But to fight Parker, to fight Zhang, you figure if Malik Scott would have helped Wilder get beyond Parker, Wilder would have made $50 million with Anthony Joshua. So that $50 million is gone out the window. There was a $20-25 million fight potentially for Andy Ruiz. That shit went out the window. And then there was some more $10 to $15-20 million paydays to just be on some more Saudi Arabia cards, just to stay busy until he can get in the ring, with AJ or another big name, even in a loss. But if they could have handled with one loss, but the 2 back-to-back losses, the way he lost, just wasn't good. But messing around Malik Scott, he lost a lot of money, and his marketability has diminished. So as a result, he's on BLK Prime, and some people are saying, yo, my man fighting in the Dollar General. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. But I do know his stock dropped significantly after that Zhang loss. That Zhang loss, that was a bad loss for Deontay. And I'm not so sure, that he's going to be able to recover millions in negotiations as a result of getting a big win against Terrell Herndon tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? Or just how many millions in negotiation can you recover from beating a guy like Terrell Herndon? I'm rooting for Terrell Herndon, but I know it's a tall task for him to beat Wilder. I just happen to know their team, and I know how he's a good dude, man. But I understand sometimes just being a good person doesn't mean you're going to go in the ring and win. The best fighter doesn't always win, and the fighter with the kindest fighter doesn't always win. It's the fighter who performs the best. And we just got to see who performs the best in the ring. But if Wilder were to win against a guy where people say, he's a good fighter after Ricardo Torres, he's put together 3 good wins to just put himself in position for a life-changing fight. But people aren't really giving Herndon a chance. So as a result, this is a low risk, so expect a low reward. And I don't think his marketability is going to recover, and he's going to recover millions of dollars in possible negotiations. Now, if he can come and go fight like a Adjit Cabiel and knock him out, he's back. If he could go fight a Fabio Wardley and knock him out, he's back. You know what I'm saying? He needs a big name on his record. But again, we got to see what Herndon shows up and how he performs. because he sounds confident. But, hey, they understand it's a tall task in front of them. And I agree. But the bottom line is, man, opportunity cost Wilder. If he would have stayed undefeated and rebounded stronger after the Fury loss, I think if he would have rebounded better after the Fury loss, I think that would have extended his marketability and his prime earning window by 2 to 3 years. Bottom line is, you're talking about $100 million in total, maybe $150 million in total career earnings lost as a result of Malik Scott coming into his life. Anyway, y'all keep cool. Shout out to the veterans, all 7 continents. Estimated opportunity, financial gain between like 100 to 150 million. All that shit went down the drain. Let's see if we can get back on track. Malik Scott's gone. What's the excuse now? Especially against, Herndon, who nobody's giving a chance. Keep cool. I'm in the breeze.